Are we in a bottom zone or just at a point where this downward movement will continue? That's what I want to discuss today. Plus, the trades I'll be watching until the NFP news is released, because once the NFP news is out, the charts will start moving from a fundamental standpoint, and they won't really take technical factors into account as much. All right, let's quickly go over the main points because right now it's becoming more and more obvious that we're in a bear market, at least for Bitcoin, because yes, we have this head and shoulders that was broken. We've dropped below the previous low, and it's a pretty aggressive move. But I believe we've reached a point where this aggressive move, at least for now, has ended because we see two volume candles that are very large. And if you look back, candles of this size have been seen when we hit a top, a bottom, or at least reached a zone where the price didn't move for a long period of time, right? That's why we need to watch it, and I'll keep you updated in the coming days anyway. Another aspect reinforcing the fact that even if Bitcoin looks, let's say, disastrous or like it's entered a downtrend, the correlation with stocks and the fact that the S&P is in a sideways move where we see it had a false breakout, and I've mentioned the false breakout at support before, will drive the price toward resistance with a probability of breaking through it. And we see that the price is now consolidating below this resistance. There's bullish pressure on resistance with a fairly high probability that we'll see a new ATH. At that point, I tend to think that if this ATH were to happen on the S&P, plus we saw on the Dow Jones that it's already formed a new ATH, all this info would also bring positivity to the crypto sphere. And to complete this idea of the needed positivity, we also need to look at gold after its crash a few weeks ago when it crashed very aggressively. We need to see it currently making a low below the previous one, right? So that this downward move can be considered a bearish flag correction here, and then see a continuation. Once it drops below 4,400, we could talk about a risk on sentiment in the market. And major investors would be much more open to high risk areas like stocks or the cryptosphere. Let's look at today's news because, as I said, today we have the NFP news 4.4%, figures that aren't great, especially since last month. Well, not last month, we actually had 4.6 in December. So it was a pretty aggressive increase. And the closer we get to the 5% target, the higher the chances we'll enter a recession. That's why I personally am still waiting for those measures to avoid a recession, measures that I believe will bring positivity to the markets, meaning a broader cut in interest rates and automatically cheaper money in the economy. All right, let's see what we have on the trading side. Right now, regarding trading, we first and foremost need to understand the direction. So, if we look at the direction and consider the fact that we're below this zone, and absolutely the daily chart, everything is bearish. So you think, okay, I want to follow this direction, but the current direction, this impulse might be exhausted, and now we might enter a correction phase. That's why we can't take sell trades from a daily chart perspective, at least in the current situation, but I can't take buy trades either. By the way, you need to understand this aspect too. The only setup you can follow according to the daily chart is if it makes a low below the previous one. And then things would be pretty clear that the price would tend to go down. And below this low, I would look for sell trades. Okay, let's expand on a smaller time frame to see what trades we can follow in this area. As I was saying, the idea of a corrective move and the fact that the price dropped and right now it might produce a correction, we see that in the current situation, we also have a potential reversal pattern. What does this reversal pattern mean? It's a V reversal, and we'll also look at the USDT dominance for a bit to discuss it there. A V reversal that says the following: if we're in a downward move and encounter such a pattern, the downward move might have ended. And in the current situation, the impulse might have ended, and we might enter a correction. But truly, we consider this pattern from the moment it's broken to the upside. Only then can it take effect. Right now, we're still clearly in a downward move. That's why on the H1 interval, the trades I'm following, though with a lower risk because they're in a trend, downward is a breakout, retest of this area, and targeting the resistance zone. That's pretty much what I'd be interested in, but I wouldn't take the trades on H1 because I'd need a bit more time. for it to take effect and the NFP news might come out. And from that moment, even if the price went in the direction of my trade, it would be pure luck. At least it's good to discuss this aspect as well. Where does this V reversal seem much more relevant to me? Because, yes, on the Bitcoin side, we see that the V reversal happened within this zone. It happened within this zone from where normally the price previously moved upwards. And that's why there's a probability that those who entered with buy trades here will protect their positions. But instead, if we look at the USD dominance, which I really like to use for both investing and trading, we'll see that the USDT dominance reached this resistance zone from where it dropped previously. And then this pattern we see here is more justified. The V reversal, but it's clearly in the opposite direction. This V reversal pattern is more justified because it's right inside a zone. But the same, I'd look for the same thing here because we have momentum, the price applied, sideways movement. We need to see it break through the bottom, return inside this consolidation, and of course, break through the support on the opposite side to think that we've entered a period where the crypto market might appreciate again. Good. Let's look at a smaller time interval. What other trades we can look for and why? These would be about the only ones I'd consider throughout the day today. And here on the 5 minute chart, things are much more permissive. And why do I say that? Because we have that area where I told you I was watching trades from an hourly perspective, but we can also continue to watch them on the 5 minute chart. We see that there was a breakout, there was a retest, but there was a false breakout. Okay. And we're on a downward move and we have a consolidation. So throughout the day today, at least in the current situation, seeing that this false breakout didn't happen to occur. Once it's past below this area, yes, I'd be interested in sell trades and targeting new lows because now I'm clearly on a downward move. So below this area, which I'll point out to you now, it's below 66,600, right? Below this area, I'd look for sell trades. But instead, today is a day that allows me to think about buy trades as well, having the previous day's low. Still, even from this area, a false breakout can occur. But I'll consider that a false breakout has occurred after it comes above the previous day's low. And from that point on, I'm only interested in buy trades. To understand this whole strategy I'm using costs you nothing. I've created that course 100% free. If you want to get it, you just need to create an account on BingX with the affiliate link in the description of this video. After you've made that account, also do a volume of $100 and you have an email there where you email me your UID and I'll give you access to the course. Preferably, you should also give me a Gmail address. And there you have absolutely everything you need to understand technical analysis, to understand what an execution setup means, to understand what it means to make your plan, how you make your plan before executing. And of course, after you've finished execution and closed the trades, how you set up your journal, which will help you become better and better and reach the desired performance. As I was saying, it's a pretty small price for such a big thing. And all that's left for me is to wish you a wonderful day ahead, good luck in everything you planned. And of course, last but not least, smile more often because it costs you nothing.